Welcome back to HypeHunters. My name is John, and in today's video, I am going to be breaking down a bunch of different card grading services that you may want to check out when getting your card graded. So say you just hit a big hit, got a nice little Charizard or a LaMelo Ball rookie card, and you want to send that thing off to get graded. I'm going to be breaking down all the services that you may want to check out when getting that card graded. So jumping right into it, PSA. Obviously, PSA is going to be one of the biggest card grading services that you may want to check out. They are the most established in the card market and definitely have the most brand recognition. So jumping into some pros for PSA, obviously that brand recognition, everyone knows a PSA 10 is going to hold the most value when it comes to a card compared to other card grading services. And it also has the biggest catalog of cards and a big pop report, so you can go on to PSA's website and check out all the cards that they have graded, and a large catalog is found there, and it's basically one of the best resources to use when grading cards. But there are some cons for PSA for sure. PSA is currently shut down, so you can't exactly send a normal submission in unless you're sending in the Super Express version, which is $300. I'm assuming a lot of cards will not be getting that Super Express, but there are still some other services that will be likely provided, and we're just going to kind of act like they're all provided right now. So obviously the base service is $20. They've been increasing that price, so prices have been increasing a lot. They've doubled in the past. On March 1st, they doubled from $10 their base service to $20 for their base service, and obviously we could see that price even go up in the future. And there is a long turnaround time for PSA. You're looking at 8 to 12 months if you're doing the base service to get your cards back. It's incredible. PSA's super backed up, and if they start putting more cards, if they start opening up more services, that time will probably just keep increasing, because obviously everyone wants to get their cards graded by PSA. So another con that I have for PSA is that there are no half grades between PSA 9 and PSA 10. That's another kind of just differentiator that makes it a little bit easier to see what a card actually grades as. So a PSA 10 could be a little bit more inflated, and maybe it's more leaning towards a PSA 9.5, but since there is no 9.5, it gets bumped up to a 10. So that's something like that makes other card grading services maybe a little bit more attractive, or maybe a little bit more unattractive, because your odds of getting a PSA 10 might be a little bit more inflated. And another con that I have for PSA is just kind of boring slabs. They're clean slabs for sure, definitely the most recognizable, but they're just kind of boring compared to some of the other companies that I'll be talking about in this video. And as I mentioned, price for PSA services, the base service right now is right around $20, which we honestly could see that price increasing once PSA opens up all services once again. But that's $20 and an expected turnaround time of a long time. So let's move on to Beckett. Obviously, PSA and Beckett are the two main card grading services that are out there for getting cards graded. Those are going to be the two big names in the market right now. And some of the pros that I have for Beckett is that a BGS 10, pristine 10 black label is the most desirable card that you can get anywhere, because that means that it is a perfect card. A PSA 10 does not mean that your card is perfect. It just means that out of all the 4 subcategories, it rounded up to a 10. So some of those subcategories might be 9.5, 9s. A BGS 10 means that every subcategory graded a 10, and that's in a black label. There is also a BGS 10 gold label, which means some can be a 9.5. BGS Pristine 10 is the most desirable card grade that you can get, and it holds the most value compared to other card grades. BGS is also a very established brand. It has a lot of brand recognition. People know, obviously, as I mentioned, PSA and BGS are the two main players in the space right now. And another pro for them, they have beautiful slabs. I think the slabs for BGS look a whole lot cleaner than PSA's, but obviously a lot more people are going to lean towards PSA just because of the value that you can get out of a PSA compared to a BGS 9.5. And then that brings me into my cons for BGS. So it is a whole lot harder to get a BGS 10 than it is to get a PSA 10. Obviously, a BGS 10 black label is like the rarest that you can get. It's like a 0.1% chance that you're gonna get BGS 10 pristine. But even a gold label is very difficult to get. A BGS 9.5 is basically the same as a PSA 10. And a BGS 9.5 is obviously, it doesn't look as good because it's not a 10 and it doesn't like really show that it's perfect. So the value of a 9.5, although it is very comparable to a PSA 10, is not gonna be the same value as a PSA 10. Also, another con I have for BGS is the long turnaround time. Obviously, card grading services are backed up. Everyone wants to get their cards graded right now, but BGS definitely backed up, probably right around 6 to 8 months for you to get your card back at the standard service. And Beckett has two main services. It is priced at $35 for the base service with subgrades, and then $20 for per card if you want no subgrades. So obviously, you're probably gonna want subgrades because I think that makes the card a little bit more valuable and a little bit more desirable. But if you just want to get your card in a pretty slab, maybe go with the no subgrade route and pay the $20. So moving on to some of the less well-known but also well-established companies, we have SGC. So some pros that I have for SGC is it's a very established grading company. They've been around for a couple decades now, and they definitely know what they're doing and can get you a reliable grade that is going to be pretty accurate to the other main players like PSA and BGS. They also have a very large card category, especially when it comes to vintage cards. So those like 80s, 90s basketball cards, they are very big into those. That's where a lot of people go to get their vintage cards graded compared to modern cards. Some cons that I have for SGC, obviously, it's a less well-known company. When I talk about SGC with somebody that's not too familiar with cards, they obviously aren't that familiar when in comparison to BGS and PSA. They also have pretty ugly slabs. I'm not a huge fan of the SGC slabs. I think they look really boring. Even compared to PSA, I think PSA has a lot cleaner slabs than SGC. But that's just my opinion. Maybe somebody else has a different opinion, but not a huge fan of the slabs. Also, it has pretty long turnaround times. I couldn't figure out an exact turnaround time at this moment, but still pretty long is what I've been hearing from people that are getting their cards graded. Another con that I have is an SGC 10 is definitely a lot less valuable than a PSA 10. And the price for SGC is right around $30 a card, which is pretty much in the range of BGS and is a little bit more expensive than PSA. But obviously, you're gonna get your card back a lot sooner than on PSA. So moving on to the next card grading service that I have here, we have GMA. So some of the pros that I have for GMA is that it is the cheapest card grading service out there currently. It was rivaling PSA for a little bit, but then PSA bumped their price and will probably bump their price again. So it's definitely the lowest right now. You can get a card graded for just under $10, which is insane. It also has a lot better turnaround times than its competitors. So those are the two pros that I have, $10 card grading, and then you can also get you can bump up to a $20 card grading, and I believe you get a 25-day turnaround time for that card, which is pretty crazy for a card to get graded nowadays. But some cons that I have for GMA. Obviously, less well known in comparison to the other three that I've even talked about. GMA is less desirable than SGC even. It also has very ugly slabs. Not a huge fan of the GMA slabs. Similar to SGC, I think they're just pretty bland and boring, but that's just my opinion. Maybe somebody else prefers them compared to other services, but to me, they're pretty ugly. GMA also holds less value when it comes to card grading in comparison to others. Price is a whole lot less desirable than other services. So now let's move on to some of the new players that have entered the card grading service market here in just basically this past year. The three that I'm going to be touching on is HGA, Revolution Card Grading, and Pure Graded X. So let's jump into HGA. HGA is one of the biggest new players that have entered the market, and I see a lot of people actually really big fans of this service. They popped out here in January of 2021, and they've taken a new approach to card grading, and they call it their hybrid grading approach, hence HGA. So basically, they grade their cards using robots and technology. They just like take a picture of a card and are able to see what the surface is and the centering and the corners and edges and all that stuff, all basically automatically through technology, which is very cool. But that also means it's a lot harder to get a good grade because it's not humans grading, it's robots. Some of the pros that I have for HGA, as I kind of mentioned, HGA removes that human error out of card grading. So you can take that as a good or a bad, but it basically makes everything equal, and you know that you're going to get a relatively consistent grade across the board. Another pro that I have for HGA is the color match slabs. I think the slabs that HGA provides are super cool. You can match team color and card color to the label of the slab, which is super cool. I think it's one of the new things that's going to probably take over the card market is that color match in the grade. So that's super cool. And another pro that I have for HGA is the pricing. So HGA prices cards based on turnaround time and not the value of the cards. PSA, BGS, all those, they value cards to get graded based on the value of the card. HGA does a little bit different, which I think is the way that it should be done, which is based on turnaround time. So the more you pay, the quicker you're going to get your card back. Some cons that I have for HGA. Starting things off, it is incredibly difficult to get an HGA 10. I have seen so many people get into the HGA submission, and I've seen maybe 2 HGA flawless 10s, which it just shows how incredibly difficult it is to grade a 10 through HGA, because I mean, it's not humans grading anymore. It's all the AI and robots that they have taken over the grading services. So definitely makes it a lot more difficult, but it makes an HGA 10 a lot more valuable. So I can see probably an HGA 10 is going to hold its value in comparison to like a BGS, probably right around a BGS 10, probably right around the same. Another con that I have is that HGA just popped out, low brand recognition, and we don't really know how it's going to stack up compared to these other grading services, and even if it's going to stick around. You know, they just popped out. I see a lot of people, HGA is selling out their submissions every single week. So they're definitely like popular, but who knows how long they're going to stick around for. And the last con that I have for HGA is that it's just very difficult to get into a submission form for them. I know that they release their slots for submissions every single Friday, and I've heard a lot of people have failed to get into those, and it's very difficult to get in because of so many people wanting to get their cards graded by HGA. So maybe that's a good thing, that means they're popular and they're going to stick around for a little bit, but it also means that obviously it's tougher to get into. And HGA's base price is $20, and that means a 60-day turnaround for your card, which is pretty good compared to a lot of other services, right around PSAs, but obviously the turnaround time is a whole lot quicker compared to PSA. So pretty competitive prices. So I'm a big fan of HGA, and I think that out of the 3 kind of new services that I'm going to talk about, I think this is the one that if you're going to grade with a new service, I think HGA is the one to do. So moving on to the next grading service that I have Revolution Card Grading, RCG. So some pros that I have for RCG is it has a full slab color. I think these are some of the coolest slabs that I've seen. Basically the entire slab is filled with some like camo or digital camo, which looks really cool. I think that they're probably going to be very popular for just those slabs. And another pro that I have for them is price is based on turnaround time. Similar to HGA, I think that's the way that a lot of card grading services are going to start moving, because I think it just makes a lot more sense than grading cards based on their value. But let's move on to some cons for Revolution Card Grading. It's just super new. They popped out like March, April of this year. Still really unrecognizable in the card market. Not many people are choosing them. I think out of the new services that are popping up, I think a lot more people are going to HGA than RCG, but we also don't know how consistent their grading service is. If they're going to be grading cards consistently across the board. I think they do manual human grades. So if that's the case, it's going to be hard for them to kind of get people in, because it's hard for new graders to stay consistent when you're just starting off. And another thing that I have for cons is that it's very expensive compared to other services. The base service is $35 to get a card graded. That's their cheapest option, but it also is a 30-day turnaround. It's expensive, but it's also a pretty quick turnaround to get a card back. So not terrible there, but I would definitely maybe wait this one out, see if they're going to stick around, see if they have consistent grades across the board, and just see how it progresses throughout the card market, and if there's more attention getting drawn to it as competition grows. So the final card grading service that I'm going to be talking about today is Pure Graded X. This is a very new service I just saw pop up like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Very new and very unrecognizable in a lot of card market groups that I'm in on Facebook. I saw somebody post about it and no one really knew what it was about, and I don't think many people are rushing to get their cards graded by them. So the only pro that I really have for Pure Graded X is quick turnaround time. They have a service, I think it's limited, a limited time right now. For $16, you can get a card graded and back in 21 days, which is a pretty good turnaround time for services right now compared to a lot of others, and that's a great price. But I will say, moving on to the cons, I'm not a fan of these slabs. I'll put a few pictures up on the screen right now. The slabs are not the best. I don't really know what they were thinking. I don't really know. I think the slabs are interesting, and I think if they tweak it a little bit, it could be a more attractive look, but I think right now it's not working for me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, what you think about these slabs. Personally, not a huge fan, and obviously, since they are so new, the grading procedure for Pure Graded X is very unclear. If you look at their website, they have kind of cryptic description of what they do for grading. So they kind of talk about that they're going to do technology and like use AI to grade the cards, or at least like the surface and centering, and then also use a human to grade the cards. So I don't know if it's like a double check to get like extra quality control over their grades, but I don't really know. It's very unclear, and honestly, this whole website and this whole company just kind of looks like it was put together by 2 guys and they just started grading cards and calling themselves a graded company. So honestly, Pure Graded X is definitely a gamble. I would not kind of put my faith in this company right away. They are very new, so I want to give them a shot. I don't want to dog them too hard, but it's definitely something that I would test out maybe a few months down the line if they continuously come back with good results and consistent grades across the board, but I don't really know how that's going to work. So the 3 new players that I have are HGA, Revolution Card Grading, and Pure Graded X. If you were to choose one of these new competitors, I would definitely lean towards HGA, as they are the most reputable out of the 3. And probably just wait to see how the other two companies play out and if they're going to stick around in the market. I think it's great that new grading companies are popping up, because that means more competition to PSA, and PSA isn't like the main one that's getting all the attention and all the business for card grading. So hopefully these companies stick around, and I'm excited to see the future of what card grading is going to look like a year from now, to see if even more competitors enter the market, and if these current competitors stick around. So if you guys want to see me get some cards graded by these various different companies, I would love to do that. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want to see a video like that, maybe cross-referencing a bunch of different companies and seeing how consistent their grades are across the board and seeing the value. So hopefully you guys did enjoy this video and got some value out of all these different card grading services that I went through. I know this is a long video and it took me a long time to put together all the information and all the editing. So please leave a like if you did enjoy, and drop a comment. Let me know what your favorite card grading service is, and if you're going to check out one of these other companies that I mentioned today, besides from like PSA or BGS. So this has been John with HypeHunters. and I'll see you guys later.